Hey everybody, good morning or afternoon, I guess, depending on where you are. Hope lunch is good, or breakfast, or last night's end of beer, whatever you're doing. I'm here with Dix, and we're going to talk about the College of Mockery, his new release on Drive-Thru RPG.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So,
Super stoked about it.
yeah, what's the deal? What did you do?
So the College of Mockery is basically a bard subclass where you are focused on just talking shit to your enemies.
Yeah.
I've always been a huge fan of the Vicious Mockery spell, so I kind of wanted to build something that would kind of play with that a little bit and mess with it in different ways. And there's also cool ways where you can use your shit talking to basically like distract your enemies and keep them from hitting your friends and leave them open for more attacks.
You know, I have to say, having been involved in the play test, it was really fun to get that kind of the way to fiction and mechanics kind of joined up for that just felt really good. Like, yes, this bard is like an awesome control character with what it can do, and at the same time, like, it felt like you were shit talking your enemies to death in a sense. Like, it just really rewarded coming up with those quips and one-liners, so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I really tried to focus on making like your words like your main weapon. That's like the bard is a full support character, so I really wanted to focus on their words being what provides that support.
And I feel that's such a natural thing for so many tables, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly. That's kind of why I just kind of fell into it. I was like, well, every time I'm sitting at a table and there's a bard across from me, that's really all they're doing anyways. Anytime they're going to use Vicious Mockery, and they're always going to come up with some sort of ridiculous pun or just something that's going to upset their enemies.
I feel like it's really perfect for that group you sit down with, where you sit down with your buddies and are just shit talking anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It just feels really, really natural. And during the playtest, everyone really fell into that role, which was really fun. Because
we did have a lot of people that were kind of like falling in that role anyways, but
yeah, right.
It just made it that much better.
It didn't matter if they're playing the character or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think that's what's so cool about it, is it just like, it rewards that style of play in a really fun way. So give me like an example of some of the mechanics that you use to kind of reinforce that. Like, everyone knows about Vicious Mockery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone that might not, Vicious Mockery is basically a bard viciously mocks you and does psychic damage to you. So, you know, the enemy cries themselves to death. But yeah, how'd you expand on that?
So I wanted, so Vicious Mockery has always been like a favorite spell of bards at low levels. Like, when you first build a bard, you see that spell and you're like, yes, of course I'm taking that spell. Why would I not? I'm just going to talk shit to somebody and deal their brain damage. Sure. But that spell always seems to kind of fizzle out in usefulness once you start getting into higher levels. And especially once you get past 5th level and all of your other cantrips start to level up with extra dice. Sure, Vicious Mockery still levels up with extra dice, but it just stays a D4 the whole time, which is very unsatisfying compared to you being able to use like D10s for Firebolt or, you know, other cantrips that do much more damage. So I kind of wanted to take the spell and give it a little bit more level, I guess not level playing field, because it still has a disadvantage, which is really good. But I basically made it to where once you hit 3rd level in this class, your damage die for Vicious Mockery is now equal to your Bardic Inspiration die. So when you hit that level at 3rd, it becomes a D6, and as your Bardic Inspiration die increases, it slowly increases as well.
That was another thing. I mean, this is kind of off topic for that, but that was another thing I really enjoyed, was the things it did with that Bardic Inspiration die.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, Bardic Inspiration is cool, right? Like, giving your friends bonuses is great, and I can't think of how many games I've played with bards where they don't think to do that and just forget to use it. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's cool, some of the other abilities that you've opened up for that die that feel like...
Thank you.
they just feel super legitimate for the school you created. Do you want to talk about any of those at all?
Yeah, so the next ability that you get at 6th level is called Fighting Words, and essentially you get to use that. It's kind of a play on the College of Lore's Cutting Words. So you get to use your reaction to shout at an enemy that is attacking one of your allies. You get to do this through your fighting words. It's kind of in the same vein as Vicious Mockery. You're kind of talking shit to try and distract them. But when that happens, they are forced to make a saving throw, and if they fail, then they get their AC reduced by a D4.
Which
because they are so distracted by your words that they kind of lose focus, so it makes them a little bit easier to hit.
And again, that's what I'm talking about. That's the way you made the mechanics and the fiction play together like that is just really, really stellar.
Thank you. Yeah, and then once you hit 14th level, it improves a little bit further, where once you use that reaction, they make their saving throw, and if they fail it, their AC is still reduced. Once you hit 14th level, it goes up to a D6. But in addition, the ally of yours that they were attacking is allowed to use their reaction to make an attack against them immediately. So not only does it distract them enough to make them a little bit easier to hit, it now distracts them enough to where it just completely opens them for a free hit.
Yeah, and that was also cool how it didn't just play with the enemies, it also played with your allies a lot.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many times in the playtest I was like, okay, I'm doing this thing. Hey, you can do this now. And yeah, it was really neat how it just kind of like chained things off, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think Dungeons and Dragons as a role-playing game, it has a kind of separation a lot of times between like the story aspect, and then suddenly the story aspect like kind of stops and you roll initiative and you get into the like the tactical part of it, which like Dungeons and Dragons has a great tactical game going for it, so it's that's not a complaint.
Yeah.
But man, does this play with both? You know, like I think it really does some fun things tactically for the party in ways that like I think few classes do. Like a lot of classes they might give someone a static buff or something like that. You know, your bless spells and whatnot, or your traditional bardic inspiration die. But this feels different in a way. Like it brings the whole party together and turns them into like a single force. And also, thank you, Kelly Lanigan. This is awesome. You're right, and I'm glad to see you here.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I've always felt that like a lot of subclasses in D&D, though they're all clearly themed, I feel like with mechanics, they sometimes kind of lose the theme a little bit between like your level ups. And I just really wanted to build something where each of these abilities kind of plays off of each other.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. What? Do you remember what level we were doing for the playtest?
We were doing 14 because we needed to get all of the abilities unlocked.
Right. And that was a fun thing to navigate through, making the character and then like going through
building high level characters for one shots is tedious.
That is really true. That's really true. It's a lot of work to get through that one adventure.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I dislike about doing that oftentimes is it doesn't give you time to get familiar with your character. You know, you just start with like a whole bunch of abilities and you're like, that said, I had split feelings on this when I was doing the playtest, because on one hand I was like, okay, this makes sense what this can do, and like the brain immediately started thinking of situations where like tactically it could use them to the best advantage. And at the same time, like it also left me with the thought of like, what if I had more time to get used to this character and really delve in there and see what
can I really do with it?
Yeah, right. Like I think it could get ridiculous, and ridiculous without being game breaking. Like I couldn't see a way where it would get to the point where anyone would be like, oh, that's too much. But I could see the way of like, wow, there's a lot of creativity and tactics that could be leveraged here.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, you kind of got in on the back end of the playtesting. So beforehand, there was a bit of a fluctuation in power balance, but that's what the whole playtesting part was for.
Yeah, right? That's what playtesting
Yeah,
is for. To find all the ways that people can break the game that you never even thought of.
exactly. Yeah, and luckily, I was very happy with all the people I got to playtest it. They were all great. I got a lot of great feedback, and they really helped me shape it and balance it into what it is right now.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. So, like, as you know, I've do a bit of 5e designing myself, but it's mostly DM, like looking at it from the DM side, right? Like, I'd rather do player-facing things, and like this hurts me to say, but I'll be honest, I'm a little intimidated about the prospect of doing that. Do you have anything to say about your design process, like going into it? Because it just seems like, I mean, there's somewhat of a, when you're making a subclass, there's somewhat of a skeleton setup of like, at these levels, something must happen. But past that, it seems kind of intimidating. So any words of advice?
It was really intimidating. Yeah, I kind of had like the loose idea, like I said at the beginning, but it was kind of a bit different. It was playing with like having the AC reduction come in at 14th level instead of 6, which I thought the AC reduction was actually going to be the big thing about the class. But at those higher levels, we ended up finding out through playtesting that it really wasn't as big of a deal. And at that point, that's when it became more apparent that the extra attack was actually what was going to make that 14th level ability better. But yeah, just kind of going through that entire process and figuring out what works, what doesn't, what is too powerful, what's not powerful enough. This being my first like actual release, it was a process. It took a bit longer than I thought, just because of trying to get people together to work those things out. And I think that was the most intimidating part for me, was the playtesting.
Man, you say this is your first release. And part of that just kind of like, ooh, my first release was so much more chonky than this. It feels good and it feels elegant. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I worked on it for a long time. Like I said, longer than I wanted to, but I'm very pleased with the product that has come out of it.
I feel when it comes to my own creative process, there's the beginning where I have this beautiful untouched idea that I'm looking at from afar and it's shining and golden. And then you start actually working on it and hammering it out, and like it's still exciting. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, now I need to actually make this work and like do all the fine tuning. And then you're already having ideas for that next thing that you want to work on. And you're like, no, stay in the mud.
Yeah, we got to finish this.
Right. Like the inspiration part is over. You actually have to do the work now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Coming up with ideas is fun and great. And then once you start to put them on paper, it's a different world.
Truly. Like I just can't help but wonder if like all great artists throughout history were like, I have this great vision in my mind. And then they paint the Mona Lisa and they're like, wow, I just took a shit on this canvas.
Yeah, man, I hate this.
Cool.
I'm sure it happens to more people than they like to admit.
Oh, totally. So you have some freebies to offer people from
That is true.
the College of Mockery. Mm-hmm. What do you got there?
So in the freebies that we're going to be handing out, so the College of Mockery not only includes my subclass, but it also includes 3 new backgrounds that I designed that are kind of built especially to kind of bring out the best in this subclass, at least your role-playing aspects. And then it also comes with 4 feats that I designed to bring out the more mechanical side of the subclass. And in the freebies today, we're going to be giving away one of the backgrounds that I wrote, which is the politician background, and then 2 of the feats that I designed, which are the battle dancer and the distracting feat.
Man. So first off, before I start talking about these, if you are looking for said freebies, if you go to the pinned comment in the comments underneath this video, you're going to find some links, and one of them is going to take you to check those out, and super worth it. During this mythic playtest that I keep babbling about, we had 2 people actually played the Bard class, but everybody used either like feats or backgrounds from it.
Mm-hmm.
And like even those not playing a Bard, the feats and backgrounds were just really cool. And I also think like they were pretty flavorful, you know. If we're talking to Politician, the one that you have made available here,
Mm-hmm.
like when you think Politician, think like slimy Politician with skills in deception, intimidation, like, and I feel like this background really does that well.
Yeah, my goal with the focus with the Politician was that they literally use their words to fight with people as a career. So what better beginnings for somebody that's just going to talk shit to somebody? Like, politicians just do that naturally, even if they weren't like, even when they're not in a meeting, that's just kind of how they are. And it really just kind of makes that beginning for these bards great, because you can kind of go with the good politician. But even good politicians know how to be condescending when they need to. When they need to get that point across, they know how to do it.
Yeah, and yeah, I feel that the background really did that. And as much as I liked it, man, let's talk Battle Dancer. I mean, yeah, that just really reeked of flavor to me. Like
Battle Dancer is
good.
One of the favorite ones that I wrote in here.
I think everyone feels that way too.
It's a lot of fun. Battle Dancer, basically, you have to be proficient in performance, but it allows you to use your performance to basically dance throughout the battlefield and deal damage. If you are right up in combat with somebody, you can make a performance check to just kind of dance away from them and move to another target and make a strike. And yeah, it's great. It just allows you to slice and dice and dance around.
And it, like, that doesn't make sense to anybody. Spend about 15 minutes at any like punk, hardcore, metal show, and you're like, oh right, okay, I get it now. We're getting in the pit. Okay.
Yeah, the idea is that your sword play is kind of also part of your performance, so you're doing both of those anyways naturally, so why would you not do that in battle?
So very good. So yeah, folks, if you want to take a look at these, look at that pinned comment in the comment section here, and it has a link to both the freebies and the College of Mockery itself, which I will say is very handsomely priced at $4.99. I'm just saying. Totally worth the fun for that. So while we're on the subject of bards, this is going to seem like a strange transition, but I'm sure you get it. Rumor has it that you're also a professional dungeon master with Crumbling Keep.
That's true. The rumors are true.
Don't worry, we won't tell too many people. So with that said, I listened to your podcast. Why don't you take a moment to talk about your podcast real quick? Because we got to talk about Help Action if we're heading out, right?
Yeah, so Help Action is a podcast that I'm a part of. It is me and 3 other dungeon masters who basically use our time to give you all the help action by answering questions about D&D, telling you about new products, and sharing our experiences, and just trying to make your games better.
And one of the sections on Help Action every week is that everyone talks about one of the games they're running. And this was one of the games that I still remember the email that they sent to ask about it. I had a group email me looking to set together a basically all Bard adventuring party. And Dix, I automatically thought of you when this happened. Like, okay, this is the guy you need to run this. This is like your group. Do you want to talk about them for a sec?
Oh yeah, those guys are great. These guys have ended up being an awesome group. They've kind of gone through. They've done some like switching up of players and stuff, but every new player that they bring in is also a bard. You have to be a bard to be a part of this group. But they call themselves Guano. That is the name of their band. It's fantastic. But they just, all they want to do is travel the land, fight evil, and play music. And it's been such a fun game. When I first got the offer from you about it, I immediately knew what I was going to do. Their first session was them. They already had their backstory written and everything before they even contacted you, which was absolutely insane. And they decided that they were a band from Waterdeep, and they were a local band that was so bad that they came together because they were all individually performing at an open mic night and were all so bad that they all got booed off stage and decided that they were the ones that needed to form a band together. So their game starts with them having like played a show in Waterdeep. They had a pyrotechnics display that went bad, killed a bunch of gnomes in the crowd, so they had to flee town. So they ran from town. They ended up finding some random little like stop off bar in the middle of nowhere while they were walking down the road, and decided to play a gig while they were in this bar. But while they were there, they ended up running into this really weird dude who was also part of the show. He was actually performing, but it was him. It was this elven dude and 3 other elves that looked exactly like him, identical quadruplets. But they performed and they played this really kind of weird music. So while that band was on stage, I was like playing a bunch of Primus and stuff for them. They were getting super into it. I had another band that performed that was a punk thrash band that was made of kobolds and goblins, which was great. The lead singer was a kobold that had an eye patch, and he carried around a stick that had a permanent thaumaturgy spell cast on it, so it acted as a microphone.
Oh, I love this.
And then they ended up coming in, and they distracted one of the bands to make them the headliner, and they got on stage, performed this awesome show. I had a series of skill challenges set up just for this performance, where only during their first song were they allowed to use performance. Other than that, they had to use other skills and spells and stuff like that to get through their show, and they ended up just crushing it. The crowd loved them. But then at the end of the show, the weird dude with the quadruplets ended up doing some weird stuff and basically transported their entire venue to this random place in the middle of nowhere that just seems to be like floating through nothingness. And that's where their campaign started. So now they just travel this random magical world trying to fight evil and make money playing music.
And again, I have to say it, like, when I listen to you talk about this game, or any game you run, you have this way of taking those 2 elements of the fiction and the mechanics and putting them together in really fun ways. You know, I feel like most DMs, like, okay, you're on stage, let's do some performance checks. And repeated performance checks, that's just going to get stale.
Yeah, it's boring.
Pretty quick, right, yeah.
Nobody wants to play individual songs only doing performance checks.
Right. Like, it just becomes a dice rolling contest there, and
exactly,
suddenly the stakes don't really matter.
Not great. There's no creativity.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what you do is pretty cool.
Thank you. I try.
And on that note, we may have mentioned not that long ago that Dix is one of the professional DMs at Crumbling Keep. So there's also, in that pinned comment at the top, there's more information on our professional Dungeon Master program. So feel free to check that out, and especially if you want to play a party of all bards. But, you know, certainly not limited to that by any means.
Definitely not. But it is an option.
Yeah. All wild campaign concepts welcomed. And if you don't have one, I'm sure Dix has a few wild campaign concepts to throw at you.
I've got a couple. I can always come up with something, too.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Before we sign off, do you have anything more to say about College of Mockery or professional DMing or anything else in general?
Yeah, if you want to play a game with me, hit up Crumbling Keep. You can also check out my DMing services on the Help Action website, which is help-action.com. I am also a part of the Swordcast Adventures, which is another D&D podcast where I play Amelia Whiteheart, a Azamar warlock. Yeah, you should check out the College of Mockery. It's a lot of fun. It is, like I said, great if you want to just shit talk your friends, shit talk your enemies. It gives you a good reason to shit talk your DM and get away with it. But overall, it's just a lot of fun. The feats that are included with it are a lot of fun, and they really they just make the mechanics of the class even more fun. So check it out.
That's really awesome. And you know, I do have to give one last plug, especially to Help Action, because I believe is an episode releasing this Friday. Is that true?
Yes. Yep.
Because I was talking to the Help Action folks on said episode that's coming out this Friday, so I'll just shovel that little promo out there.
Yeah.
But I really do believe it's like the best podcast you're not listening to yet. So if you're not, you should really check that out.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Well, Dix, thanks for making time this afternoon.
Yeah, of course.
I hope the folks at home had a great time. What's this? Ray left us a little message here. So I've been working on a Bard campaign that the point of your group is to travel the country and try and win the country's Bard competition.
Love it.
I hope that you just took some notes because I think there's some great.
Yeah, that is
ideas
great.
there.
I love that. I love the idea of like a countrywide music, like battle of the bands. There you go.
Right, but countrywide, so like plenty of travel time between.
Yeah.
Lots of things to go wrong. Well,
oh yeah, all sorts. I kind of I've played around with that idea a little bit, but I didn't quite like solidify it before I had to start their campaign. So that might actually come in a little bit later.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thanks everybody for hanging out. If you have more questions for either of us, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Even if this video isn't live, we still get to see them, and we're happy to answer. But yeah, check out those links in the pinned post, and enjoy your day, everybody.
Oh yeah, thanks everyone.